You're being story bombed by theme parks and it's changing your entire day. You ever wonder how some theme parks feel relaxing and others feel draining? It's not just the crowds or the amount of roller coasters, it's the plot type secretly manipulating your mood. We're going undercover to reveal how the complement of exploration, mission, and survival storylines secretly control your theme park experience. Just for a quick recap, for those of you who haven't seen my Secrets of Theme Park storytelling video, check it out. An exploration story is where the audience isn't given any specific task and there isn't usually any major conflict or really any conflict at all. Whether or not an attraction in the exploration genre tends to be successful is based more on if it's a cool place to visit than anything else. Survival stories are similar to exploration stories in that the guests are out sightseeing. However, in these stories, something goes wrong and the guests are thrust into some adventure, often a life-threatening one. In the story, of course, OSHA and all that. The final attraction story type is a mission story. In these attractions, the guests are given a specific task that they need to accomplish by the end of the attraction. So you have to find something or deliver something or learn the answer to something. It's not just about survival. It's about whether or not the task was fulfilled or not. As you may be able to surmise, the change in the complement of these story types dramatically affects the way that you feel at the end of the day. A lot of mission stories, and you sort of feel bossed around. You're constantly being told you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to look out for this thing, and you're not able to fully relax. On the other hand, too many exploration stories can feel quite passive, like there really isn't any conflict, there aren't any stakes to the attractions, and if you don't find the scenery of the attractions that compelling, the day can be rather bland. Take a minute right now and ask yourself how different theme parks make you feel when you just think of the name, something like Animal Kingdom or Universal Studios Florida. I bet you have a different visceral response, not just because of the ride types, but because of the story types. What kind of journeys and adventures the stories involve, how much conflict there is, etc. Now, rather stay here in this ethereal land, I wanted to get some hard data on this because I'm a nerd. And so I went through the list of all the attractions in all the theme parks and I counted how many exploration stories, how many mission stories, how many survival stories, and I broke it down into percentages. This isn't an exact science because what actually constitutes an attraction can be somewhat debatable, like do you count all the Main Street vehicles as different attractions? I don't, by the way. However, what we're really looking for is just a general vibe and numbers behind it to justify why people might feel that way. So let's begin with the one that started it all. Disneyland. Disneyland has a lot of classic attractions, which is why 63% of them are exploration stories. Classic attractions generally didn't demand much from the audience, just look around, isn't it pretty? And something like that. There's also a certain softness to Disneyland. You will specifically notice that there are a small amount of mission attraction. There aren't a lot of rides at Disneyland where you're given a specific task to accomplish by the end of the attraction. This has been a trend in more modern stories, and guess what? Galaxy's Edge, which are some of the more recent attractions, are both mission attractions. Moving over to California Adventure, yeah, this is a newer park, so 26% of its attractions are mission stories. But also has a fair amount of exploration stories. And a lot of this is a holdover from when the park first opened. Back in 2001, it was chock full of exploration stories. And it is one of the reasons why I think that park didn't quite get the footing. There just wasn't a lot of conflict or tension or stakes in most of the attractions. It was, let's look around, let's fly over California, let's go down Whitewater Rapids, let's go on a Ferris wheel. Let's ride for the sake of being a ride mostly. Now, it might surprise you that Magic Kingdom has even more exploration attractions than Disneyland. But one of the reasons why is that it just doesn't have as many attractions as Disneyland. It doesn't have Galaxy's Edge or some of the other new expansions that caused that number to shift. It's still a lot more like its classic 1971 self. And the emphasis on exploration attractions makes sense for the era it was built. Epcot's complement of attractions looks a little bit more like California Adventure. There's a fair amount of mission attractions, and that fits Epcot's theme of discovery and getting guests involved looking into the future. Although a lot of these missions are from more recent attractions that have replaced the original Future World pavilions that were pretty much all exploration. In fact, if you look at the opening day complement of attractions, Epcot was either 100% exploration attractions or 93% exploration attractions. And that's if you count the Image Works as a mission attraction because it's tasking you to do things. And again, it gets into what actually even is an attraction. It is somewhat odd that the Imagineers chose to completely ditch the concept of conflict altogether. They had just built Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion that have conflicts, and I think the fact that Epcot really opened without any, it had some you could argue with, like, I guess the dinosaurs looking somewhat threatening in Universe of Energy or the sort of conflicts that are developed within the American Adventure, but no, there really wasn't anything that would indicate, you're in any danger or there's some obstacle to overcome. It was all very inspirational, which, sure, that was the vibe of Epcot. But over and over and over again, this is the reason why, as soon as they started expanding with attractions, they started to adjust this. So you have things like Maelstrom and Body Wars, and you get conflict. Hollywood Studios comes in with the lowest amount of exploration attractions we've seen so far. And yeah, you feel that when you go to the park, right? It feels more frantic. It feels more threatening. It's an edgier park. We also have the highest mission total of any of the theme parks so far. Again, empowering and skews well for teenagers, younger audiences that want to be emboldened to be part of the story. Animal Kingdom cuts that down a little bit and has more exploration stories, which would make sense considering the theme of the park. Although it used to have more conflict because one of the major attractions, Kilimanjaro Safaris, used to turn into a survival story where you were trying to outwit some poachers. People found that distracting, so they turned it into just a straightforward exploration story. And considering Animal Kingdom has such few attractions, that does make a very big difference in those numbers. By the way, a common complaint about Navi River Journey is it's just another exploration story, no conflict, doesn't really lead anywhere, just has some one big grand figure at the end. Yeah, it was an interesting choice, particularly in a park that was so exploration heavy in the first place. Moving over to Universal Studios Florida, there's a dramatic shift. And yeah, you feel this, right? When you're at the park, Universal Studios doesn't have a lot of let's stop and smell the roses attractions. Everything feels a mile a minute. And we're seeing higher mission storylines. You can feel a little bit bossed around at Universal, or it might feel a little bit heavy handed that every ride has some backstory and something to learn, and you can't just sit down and relax and enjoy something. At least, that's what some of the critics of Universal Studios Florida might say. Islands of Adventure, even more so. There is just nowhere to relax at this park. Almost every attraction involves some sort of harrowing journey or something to do. Even One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish doesn't let you relax. It gives you a song you have to follow because it's trying to help you stay dry, as if it's some specific mission. Even the Flight of the Hippogriff roller coaster is bossing you around and asking you to show deference to the animatronic before you go up a lift hill. Like, can you leave us alone for a little bit, Universal? Not surprisingly, you see a similar compliment at Universal Studios Hollywood, although in this situation, you have more survival stories. There just aren't a lot of attractions at Universal Studios Hollywood, but yeah, all of them want to kill you, or at least half of them do. But I can't wrap this up without taking a window into the future of Epic Universe and figuring out what might that park feel like. Now, I don't know 100% how the storylines are going to be presented, but based on what has been leaked out and just some general guesswork, my gut is that it'll look something like this. And for those hoping that Universal would take a little bit of a chill pill, this park will have the highest amount of exploration attractions of any Universal park thus far. So good for them. There's also more of a split between survival story and mission stories, although that won't be fully revealed until I get to visit. I guess I'm going to have to do some research. Oh, wow. So, just to recap, the top three exploration theme parks are Magic Kingdom in number one with 75%, Epcot in second place with 65%, and a tie between Animal Kingdom, California Adventure, and Disneyland at 63%. You can see a lot of similarities. The Disney theme parks do have a similar tone across the board, and Disney Hollywood Studios is the outlier. Yeah, holds true. For survival stories, you see Universal Studios Hollywood at the top with 50%, then Islands of Adventure at 40%, and Disneyland Park. Kind of surprised to not see Universal Studios Florida in this mix, but remember, Universal Studios Florida has a lot of mission attractions. For mission attractions, we have Universal Studios Florida with 45%, and Islands of Adventure with 40%. Universal is the king of bossing you around. Perhaps. It could be that Epic Universe is going to split the difference between a Disney park feel and a Universal park feel. Sort of like how Disney's Hollywood Studios feels. Well, there you have it. Now you understand how after a long day and walking to your car, you feel differently at the Magic Kingdom than you do at Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's because it's a whole lot further from the entrance. But beyond that, certainly the story types do play a secretive role at affecting your day. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into story archetypes for theme park attractions. As you can tell, I live for this. So please like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things. Leave comments below if you disagree with any of my conclusions, or let me know what theme park analysis you'd love to see in the future. Until next time.